Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm your host, Kathryn Taylor. Well, this show is being recorded in the month of December, and it's been with some challenges with snow. Newfoundland is definitely starting the season out with a lot of the white stuff. And today we are going to delve into stories that center on Newfoundland at Christmas and even a little romance. So my guest is coming all the way from Pugwash, Nova Scotia, but she's spent a number of years living and enjoying Newfoundland as a freelance journalist. Please join me in welcoming Denise Flint to Let's Get Writing. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Kathryn. How are you?
Good. I'm glad we finally got to get together. Our first opportunity was stormed out, and here we are now.
Yes, in both our provinces.
In
It
both
wasn't one of us, it was both of us.
That is
Well, thank you for
true.
having me on the show.
Well, thanks so much for doing it. And you're coming from the Pugwash Library, and because we are both avid writers and readers, it's nice to be able to feature a library and also to thank them for hosting this call for us.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. It's windows out onto the world and lots of books and brand new
Nice.
place. So,
Wonderful.
yeah.
It's good to see the libraries thriving. Well, your book, Home for Christmas, I have to say I absolutely enjoyed it so much. There were 4 romances, and I think the first thing I want to say, Denise, this is the first book you've written on which your name actually appears. You've written many
That's right, yes.
romances as Barbara Burke. So tell us all about this journey to making yourself visible.
Well, Barbara Burke is my pen name for romances, but it's not my name in the sense that Barbara is my middle name, so that is my name, and Burke is my mother's maiden name. So I always say if we lived in a matriarchy, my last name would be Burke rather than Flint. So Barbara Burke is very much a part of me. But when I first started writing romances, I was working as a freelance journalist, as you mentioned earlier, and I just felt that, and this is going back a few years, not a whole heck of a lot of time, but a few years, and I just felt that the person who was Denise Flint, who was writing articles about the oil industry or a new house that had been built and how it's decorated and various kinds of things, wasn't somebody perhaps that people would want to know was also writing fictional romances at the same time. I was worried they'd go, well, she's not really a proper journalist because she writes romance. It was kind of, I admit there is a prejudice against romance. It still exists. It isn't anything like what it used to be. And I guess I bought into that and thought, well, if I want to be taken seriously in journalism, I can't also be doing romance. So I chose to use another name. But when I wrote this, I thought, I have to own this. I have to, not be ashamed of what it is I'm doing because I enjoy it and this is what I want to do. And if I say, well, I'm going to, stay in the closet and not admit that I'm doing it, that's doing me a disservice. And it's doing the romance industry a disservice. Like I should not be ashamed of it. So here I am under my own name. And
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. And what you're talking about and how you felt is not unusual to people who write in the romance genre, especially if they are serious. But it is serious writing, in fact, and I don't know the stats. It's big business. These are hugely,
it's huge.
huge money generating business. And we can think of people like Nora Roberts, and she writes under a few different names. And so it's time to just say, here we are. We like romance. We like writing it. We like reading it. I do too. And and people are going to love your book. So let's open the cover a little bit and go into, I'm thinking those years in Newfoundland must have got you thinking and inspired you. And the lovely thing about this book is that we're in one story, we're in Battle Harbor, and another we're in Gander, another St. John's. So tell a little bit about it. Let's take the first story, Mary in Battle Harbor.
Well, I'm trying to remember how that came about. I did want to make sure that I set a story in Labrador, and I could have, put it in Goose or something like that because it's sort of an obvious spot. But my husband and I went on a vacation in Labrador a few years ago, and I just found Battle Harbor such an interesting place, and I knew that I needed somebody with a reason to be in Labrador, and obviously the Grenfell mission would be something that somebody would go to, an outsider would go to, and I didn't feel qualified to write a book from the point of view of a person who was an actual person from Labrador.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked having a stranger as the main character, and Battle Harbor is such an interesting place, so that's what I chose.
Yeah, it is indeed. And I found it was very interesting, like that first book, I believe, was set after World War I.
One, yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
very, a very remote place for this woman to go.
Yes.
And we don't want to give away too many things, but she went with love in her heart
Yes,
and
she
experienced a huge disappointment, but it just took her through how she managed that. Your stories bring, the book is called Home for Christmas, so there's that element of
Yeah.
roots and finding yourself, which pretty much
Finding
travels.
home. Yeah. Because they're not all coming to what we think of as home, but they are all finding a home when they arrive. So every story starts with somebody arriving somewhere in Newfoundland. It's always the first one is on the Kyle, which most Newfoundlanders will know about, one of the alphabet boats. The second one is by plane. The third one is by ferry from Nova Scotia, and the last one is by plane from Toronto. So
Pretty much how a lot of life happens here in Newfoundland as it unfolds, because so many people do live away and come back by one means or another, and quite often by their heart. The second story with Kate Gowdy, that one was just so intriguing to me. I loved it. And that was set in Gander. That brought back... Partially, yes. Yeah,
because they also go to St. Anthony.
Well, tell me a little. Yeah, they do on one of their special flights. Kate is an unusual and a very strong character, a very independent woman. What that was set back in what, around 1950, I'm thinking, or 48.
40, I think it was. It was just post World War II. Yeah, she. That was actually the first one I wrote. And I had been researching, Barbara Burke wrote a book about a woman in World War II London, and she had a cousin in the story who was an aviatrix. And I just got very intrigued by that whole idea of so many women were pilots in that time. And after the war, they were discarded, basically. The powers that be said, well, we don't need you because we don't need the planes. And if there are jobs flying, obviously we're going to give them to the men. So, bye, thanks, get lost. And so there was Kate sort of picking up whatever job she could because she wasn't going to give up flying. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, she was definitely an independent spirit, and she was embracing her nature when she shows up in the book. I loved her. I just loved her attitude, or as we would say today, she had a tude. But she also nurtured a broken heart, and on many respects for a man she had lost, but also a child. And it was very, very interesting how it all came together. But it certainly, I go out to Gander, and anyone, if they've not been there, the airport has been restored, and parts of when I first grew up, it was open, and then it was not available to us. We'd see it through a window, and now it's again opened as a museum. And you've really captured that sense that you feel when you walk into it of the lives that were lived, the people, the stories that pass through that airport. Ah,
Yeah, thank you. It's a fascinating airport. I had the opportunity to do a like behind the scenes sort of tour a few years ago, and I really enjoyed seeing all the history and some of the places that you don't always get to see.
no, you don't. And there's so much imagination when you walk into that building. I'm so glad it's
Yeah.
there for us. So Kate really captured my heart. So all of these stories, just they're complete and very, very, very romantic. Next, we land. We go through the ferry into St. John's, and another thing that was very interesting in the book that I wrote started the same way. A woman coming back, and I thought, oh my goodness, do we, all of us with all our ideas, and yet when we come together, some of them are very similar. And so I found it very entertaining when I looked at it, and I thought, gee, I feel like I'm reading my own stuff here. And then that story, talk a little bit. I believe her name was Maureen.
Maureen.
Maureen, yeah.
She's not like Kate. She's not like Mary, who is the main character in the first story. She's a bit younger. She's just trying to find her way. She wants a career in photography. She's not sure she's going to be able to make it. She's taking care of her sister has died, and she's taking care of her niece, and she just comes home to St. John's to be with her mom at Christmas and runs into a fellow she used to know in university. And
As
it goes
that
from there.
happens. And I love the
Yeah.
fact that you have featured the happy tree.
Yeah, I didn't call it the happy tree. I wasn't sure. I tried to get in touch with them and ask if it would be okay if to use the happy tree, and nobody got back to me. So I thought, well, I'll just make up a tree, and everybody will know it's the happy tree, but it isn't technically. But,
Well,
yeah, I always thought you'd see children standing at the fence, chatting away with the tree, and I thought, gee, I wonder what kinds of things that the person who is behind the tree actually hears sometimes, because kids will say anything.
and
That's
yeah,
what happened here.
yeah, it is what happened there. We can't be giving away the stories, but again, a wonderful love story. And then we moved on to something more contemporary in the last story in the book,
Yep.
2010. And
Yeah.
let me think, Julia was our character in that
Julia.
one? Thank
Yeah.
heavens.
Yeah.
Trying to keep all of this, you read a book and then you go back and you're trying to recall all the stories. Tell us a little bit about Julia's adventure.
Well, Julia is a proud Newfoundlander. She's a journalist for a magazine in St. John's that I'm not going to say is down home, but that was my inspiration. And she has annoyed a few people by saying that she's not pleased at the way the past traditions are being turned into this happy little fun thing, like she calls it Disneyfying. And she gets told that's not a good attitude and sent to learn more about the traditions and how important they are. And along the way, she meets a journalist from Toronto who's more of a big shot, who's also doing the same thing.
And of course, we know romance ensues. But in amongst all that, there's mummers, there's ugly sticks, parts of our culture that have been revitalized over the years, and it was interesting your take on that as well. So this is a wonderful book to bring people into aspects of Newfoundland, but also just heartwarming in terms of the romance. So when you thought to write this, was it your intention from the beginning to set them all in Newfoundland, or did that happen by accident?
Well, as I said, I wrote the second story, Kitty Hawk Flies Home. I wrote that first, and it was actually going to be a novel. And then I decided I would rather keep it short and maybe put it into a collection. And as soon as I decided that, I said they all have to be stories set in Newfoundland and Labrador. So,
Yeah. And it works so well. And I actually can actually see the Kitty Hawk story being much bigger and much more, because there's just so
Yeah.
much you could go into with that particular career at that time. She was a pretty brave woman. Puts me in mind of a bit of Indiana Jones, if Indiana Jones had been a woman. That's sort
Yeah.
of what she was doing, and I think it sparks our imagination. And a lot about romance. I mean, what's your take on why it's such a popular genre? You've been writing Regency romances. You've been involved with organizations, but what's your take on it? Why do we keep coming back to these stories over and over again?
I think we just like a happy ending. Romance is almost like comfort food in the sense that when you're feeling a little down maybe, or you just need something that's not going to make things worse, or is going to make you feel better, or just for fun. Go, I know I can read a romance. I know that this is going to happen and this is going to happen. There's going to be two people, probably. Somehow they're going to fall in love and things are going to work out in the end. And I think we all want things to work out in the end. They just feel good.
Well, even if you think
And
in terms of films and movies, there's some of the most largest grossing films, very popular genre in the cinema. And I think sometimes it fades in and out. We're into superheroes, we're into Star Wars, we're into different things, but the romance always comes through. It's never not there. And personally,
yeah,
in my opinion, a good story's got to happen anyway. I don't care what the topic is.
exactly. I mean, you can talk about Star Wars and as being an adventure movie, as being science fiction, as being whatever you like. But what do people talk about? They talk about Leia and Han. That's the heart of the story right there, making sure those two get together. So I think that's the case with everybody.
It is, yeah. And so talk a little bit about the books you wrote. I read some of your blogs on your webpage that you go quite into a lot. Well, maybe this is the journalist in you. You go into a lot of research about the times, and talk a little bit about when you're writing those books. A lot of background work before you get to the romance.
It's one of those things where I don't want to be wrong. The worst way of getting thrown out of a story is if you're reading something and you go, oh, no, 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 that could never have happened that way. Or, oh, you're using completely the wrong term for this, or you're interjecting something into the period that was not there. And I find that very annoying. So yes, I do like to know my period, but you can get to the point where you're saying you have to stop doing the research, because you can research forever and ever and ever, and it's time to start writing and actually getting it down. That was the interesting thing about excuse me, the fourth story in the collection was, since it was set in 2010, it was pretty contemporary, so I didn't have to do any historical research at all, and that was very freeing. I kind of enjoyed that, not having to worry that I got everything exactly right, because I remembered what it was like. Even the third story, which was set in the 70s, I contacted a couple of friends who I knew would remember the Avalon Mall or something like that, and said, make sure that I get this right, that I haven't put a store in that wasn't there until the 80s, or I've put a restaurant in that closed in the 60s or anything like that. You just always want to get it right.
The behind the scenes things that people don't realize that writers spend a lot of time thinking about. And especially, you are right, the more you go back, the more challenging it can be. I found another manuscript that I had written. I spent a long time researching things that I didn't know about. Sometimes it's easier to write about what we're familiar with. And human nature being what it is, we can always implant and find ways to make it interesting. Just as there are so many different people in our lives, it's crazy. The material is there all the time in front of us. But I would never personally want to write historical romance. It'd be it'd be, I look at it as being a lot of work, and history was never my favorite subject in school.
Oh, I have a degree in history. I can't listen to that.
I'm not surprised to hear that. That makes a lot of sense why you would enjoy that. It really does. So you're also quite involved actively in helping the romance genre, nourishing it in Atlantic Canada. So the Romance Writers of Atlantic Canada, you are the VP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, talk a little
Yes,
bit
I am.
about that. Yeah, there may be people out there who'd be interested in being part of it.
That would be great. Yeah, our WAC, as we call it, is all 4 Atlantic provinces, open to everybody in all 4 Atlantic provinces. It's mostly we meet online now, so it doesn't matter where you are. We have a couple of members in Goose Bay. We have a couple of members in Fredericton, all through Nova Scotia. They're pretty much everywhere. Everything's online to make sure that it's completely inclusive. We have monthly meetings and other things, and some of our members are multiply published, quite well-known authors. Others are just starting out and trying to figure out what a romance is and how they can write one. And it runs the gamut from there. It's very supportive, and we are trying hard not just to support our members, but to bring the work out into the world and try to stop people like me saying, "Oh, romance is so embarrassing."
Well, when your friends from our WAC see this, they're going to be, hey, Denise, what are you saying?
Yeah, they are.
They
I
are.
think it's something we all struggle with, though. We really do, a lot of us.
Yeah, I think if we've been career women, especially too, and we've worked hard to establish ourselves in business, and like yourself, I worked in media, and so you're trying to be serious in developing your career. But yeah, I love to read romance. I love to write romance, and it is a little hard to put it together in your head. And when I first started, I was going to do the same thing. I was going to publish under a different name, so I again could be invisible. Which brings me to another point. I think one of the most difficult things in writing a book is actually putting it out there and sharing it, because even if it is fiction, there's still aspects of you speaking through your characters, because it's what we know. It's our perception on the
Right.
world. Do you hear that a lot from your members or from new writers? And is there a point where you just don't care?
I think that all writers are like that, not necessarily romance writers. I know that we all say, "Oh no, this is all made up," but it's all based on our own, where we are in the world. I must admit that I often wonder, like, is Stephen King all right? Good heavens, the stuff he writes.
Mm-hmm.
But it is imagination, but
Yeah.
it's based on our perception of the world, I guess. I like to have nice people in my stories because I like nice people, and little tiny things happen in the stories that are personal experiences or just something that somebody's told me over dinner one night. I went to the store and this funny thing happens, and it ends up in a book.
Exactly. People have to be careful what they say to us. We're always mining for material.
We are.
Yeah, we are. But Denise, before we wrap, I just want to take a minute to mention who you published with, which is After Books.
Right.
Kelly Power and Amanda Bonte. It's a new imprint in Newfoundland. Exciting.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, they're great. I think they've been around for about 2 years now. Home for Christmas is their first fiction. So they've been publishing nonfiction up until now, and they're working really hard. I think they've got about 8 books out now, and they're very author friendly. They've been nothing but wonderful to me. So
wow.
I can't say enough good things about them.
Well, we'll wish them all the luck as they go forward, and maybe they'll be opening for more Christmas books and more romance along the way.
Yeah.
You've opened the door for us. And if anyone wants to reach you, we have your webpage, which is deniseflint.ca. Correct?
Right? And
we got it up
I'm
there.
on Facebook all the time, so just have to look for me there.
That's wonderful. Well, I
Yeah.
want to thank you so much for the time and going through all the effort to be here, the storms and the planning, and a couple of our
Thank you.
originally I had conceived this show with a couple of other guests, and they couldn't make it when we had to reschedule. So I do want to mention their books and share them with our audience in case they're looking for more Christmas writing based in Newfoundland.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one was Mike Martin. Mike's in Ottawa, and he's been on the show, and he writes about Sergeant Windflower, and they're set down on the Burin Peninsula and around Marystown and Grand Bank, I think, is and that area. So he has his third Christmas story out, and it just shares the heartwarming stories of friends in that small community setting, and a very, very nice read. And the other one is April Harvey, and April's an independent published author. The Witch, Her Dog, and A Newfoundland Christmas. And I think her niece did the illustrations. Beautiful, colorful books for children, which we know is what Christmas is all about. And also I think her message is of love. So the presence of your friends and family, not the presents under the tree. So hopefully we've been able to share some great ideas with people for Christmas books, if not this year, next year. And again, to feature another wonderful author such as yourself, Denise, who's promoting our island. It's a form of tourism.
Not just the island, also Labrador. Don't forget
Also,
Labrador.
actually, yes. Thank you very much. I'm usually pretty conscious of that, so thank you for the reminder. So to all our friends out there in Newfoundland and Labrador and around the world, thank you for joining us on Let's Get Writing, and have a wonderful season. We'll see you in the new year.